I'm Assemblywoman Joanne Simon, Assemblymember Joanne Simon. I always, it's easier to say woman than member. It's like a funny thing. Anyway, so good afternoon. I'm so pleased to be here today, joined by so many of my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate. I want to thank Senator Betty Little for championing this bill in the Senate. Thank you very much, Senator. We are also joined today by firefighter Antoinette Proctor from the New York City Fire Department, Serena Sarascool, who is the president of the United Women Firefighters of the FDNY, and Regina Wilson, who's president of the Vulcan Society, and Nilda Irizarry Hoffman, who is the newly appointed chief of Community Affairs, New York City Police Department. So we're just delighted that these women have joined us because they're what this is all about. And they've been leading the way, and we're looking now for many more people to join their ranks. The use of gendered language, fireman or policeman, is antiquated and inaccurate. It promotes an outdated worldview that suggests to young girls and young boys alike that law enforcement and firefighting are only open to men. This bill updates New York's laws to use gender-neutral language to acknowledge that brave female firefighters and police officers who risk their lives to keep us safe every day. The NYPD, the New York City Police Department, employed women as police officers since the early 1900s. Originally designated as the Police Women Bureau, the police department removed the distinction in 1973 and implemented the first gender-neutral civil service exam for police officers. The first female promoted to deputy chief occurred in 1978, and today women serve among some of the highest-ranking officers in the department, including deputy commissioners and bureau chiefs, and we're joined today by one of our chiefs. Today, 18% of police officers are women. In the FDNY, they have made similar strides, having hired female firefighters since 1982. Well, this year saw the FDNY's first deputy commissioner, Laura Kavanaugh, which is the second highest ranking civilian administrator in the FDNY. The ranks of female uniformed firefighters remain thin. Out of 11,050 uniformed firefighters, a mere 72 of them are women. But today, more women are discovering a career in firefighting, reflecting our unique times when women are speaking up, stepping up, marching in the streets, running for office. In 2017, more women took the firefighter entrance exam than ever before. 4,181, more than twice as many as took it in 2012, which was a pitiful 1,900. But with our police and fire departments, they've been making progress. The language of our laws has not. Updating the language by which we refer to these brave women, honors their important legacy and will help today's women continue that legacy. Again, I'm so honored that we're joined this morning by firefighters Martinez, Sarascool, and Wilson. Proctor. We had a late change. And Chief Nilda Irizarry Hoffman. In short, this update to the legislative language is as profound as it is simple. Language has great power to change our perception of these professions, help us create a more inclusive safety force, enhance opportunities for the advancement of women at all levels of these professions. So I thank you for joining us here today. And now I'm going to introduce Senator Betty Little, who, as I mentioned earlier, is the chair of Women's Issues in the State Senate and championed this bill in the State Senate. Thank you very much, Senator Little.
Thank you, Joanne. This is really exciting, as many events that we've had recently. Just last year, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of women having the right to vote in New York State. This year, we can celebrate the 100th anniversary of the first two women running or being elected. There were 12 women who ran. 2 were elected to the New York State Legislature, Ida Samus and Mary Lilly. Back in their day, that was a non-traditional thing to do. And as soon as, 10, 15 years ago, it was non-traditional for someone to become a fire person or a police officer. And yet many women did and had the courage to do so. And my hat's off to them, because I know I'm dating myself, but when I graduated from college, your choices were pretty much being a nurse, a teacher, or a secretary. So I couldn't stand the sight of blood, and I wanted a college education, so I became a teacher. But there are so many more choices for young women today, and many, many more role models, which you are, and right in front of us today. So all of you have done something extraordinary by opening up this field and proving yourself to the point where no one thinks about it anymore. To have so many women taking the exam and, aspiring to be you is very, very important. So we were able to pass this bill last week, I think, or the week before, and I'm very happy. I think it's just only appropriate that we say police officers and firefighters. That's exactly what they are, whether they are men or women. And I'm glad to be part of this piece of legislation and working with the Assemblywoman to have this happen. I have to tell you, I was writing a paper one time about women in the legislature, and this has to be, I was still in the Assembly, so it had to be like 17 years ago. But I ended up, when I wrote Assemblywoman, had to fight with my computer because autocorrect kept changing it to Assemblyman. So I hope that we notify autocorrect that this is what we have now, firefighter and police officer. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. So I'm going to now ask some of our firefighters and our police chief to say a few words, and then I will also invite up my colleagues, those of whom would like to say a few words. I'll just introduce the colleagues who are here at the moment so that you know who they are. We have been joined by our Majority Leader, Joe Morelli. There he is. The Dean of the Brooklyn Delegation, Assemblymember Joe Lenthal. Assembly members Carrie Werner, Carmen Arroyo, Rebecca Seawright, Nili Razik, and Kevin Byrne. So we're all here. Everybody's supporting this bill, so this is great. So first, I'll switch with you if you want. Ask Antoinette Proctor, who is a former U.S. Marine who joined the FDNY to continue to serve her community. She's a mom. She loves being a hero for her kids and kids across New York, and she's certainly a hero to us. Thank you. Thank you. Please say a few words.
I was going to hold the banner.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Firefighter Antoinette Proctor. I am not a fireman, I'm a firefighter, and I appreciate that the state has taken the time to represent us within the laws. Over this last several years, FDNY has made great strides to get more women or recruit more women on the job, but it takes more women to step up to the challenge. It's been successful. Our numbers have doubled. We, like the Assemblywoman said, Assembly
Woman.
member now. Assembly member now. Assembly member now. It's stated we recruited 4,000 people. 4,000 women over 4,000 took the test, which doubled our numbers, and hopefully we'll get more women on the job. As of right now, we have 72 members on the job, which is the highest number we ever had before, and hopefully more women will step up to the challenge. Representation matters, and the FDNY is doing its part to better represent the city that it serves. That's part of why this bill is so important. Representation matters, and so do words, and it's important to update the language in our laws to increase and accurately represent all those who work for the police and for firefighter side. Thank you for everyone who's worked to make that change, and that's about it.
Thank you. Okay. So maybe we'll go to the police, and then we'll go back to the firefighters. So Nilda Irizarry Hoffman is the first Hispanic woman appointed 3-star chief within the NYPD. She worked her way up from a civilian in the department in 1987 to a rookie cop 3 years later and moved up the ranks through 4 precincts in North Manhattan and the Bronx. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Nilda Irizarry Hoffman.
That's it. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's really a great day. I'm very happy to be here. As the Assembly member said, I have been a member since 1987, first serving as a police administrative aide before becoming a police officer, and I am the first Hispanic woman in the NYPD to be promoted to 3-star chief in January. Thank you. Since 1845, the NYPD has employed women, first as matrons, taking care of female prisoners, and then 1912, the department appointed its first female detective. In 1918, the NYPD hired the first 6 police women, and women have increasingly been represented throughout the department ever since 1973. Today, women serve as some of the department's higher-ranked leaders, including deputy commissioners and bureau chiefs, and making approximately 68% of our civilian force. Women compromising our civilian ranks include those performing integral duties such as school safety agents, criminalist, crime analysts, and traffic enforcement agents, just to name a few. The NYPD has not used the gender-based designation of patrolmen or patrolwomen for over 4 decades. In fact, all uniformed personnel have been only referred to as police officers since 1973. I want to thank the sponsors of the legislation, Assemblymember Joanne Simon and Senator Betty Little, and the other co-sponsors for passing this measure. It's truly a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have hi, how are you? Assemblymember Joe Arago. The other day I got in the mail, it was just not coincidentally, this great book about the bravest women. These are the women of the FDNY, and it has a lot of history about women serving in the FDNY throughout history, and features a lot of the women currently serving who are doing such a wonderful job. And I think we may have some of those people here with us today, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew about this publication because it's really important, and it helps us send the message that we are better, stronger, and safer when we have women serving in the FDNY and in the NYPD. So I'm going to now ask Serena Saraskul, I want to say it right, who is the FDNY's first Asian American female firefighter, who has made it her mission to get more women onto the force. As president of the United Women Firefighters, she has helped to more than double the number of female firefighters in New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As Assemblymember Simon said, I am the first and only Asian woman firefighter in New York City. We're really proud and happy to be here today amongst friends. I started in the department in 2005, 13 years ago, and I just wanted to illustrate some of the realities that us firefighters have to face. So we brought with us today some blow-ups of some of pages from the fire department manual. It wasn't really hard for me to dig through the manual to find gendered language. When I was studying for lieutenant, it popped up frequently, but here's just an example of one evolution that firefighters study to this day, used to study, and it's called the 3-man beam raise. The positions are the butt man, raising man. If you look at the board that we have in the easel, there's, excuse me. This is, oops, sorry. This is, it says like 4 men for operation, number 1 man, number 2 man, number 3 man, number 4 man, front man, rear man. These are unfortunately very common nomenclature that we use in the fire department. Every day we hear fireman, minimum manning overtime. It's very common whenever we call the union. We always get asked, what's the name of your husband? What's his social security number? And that's the reality of exclusionary language, is that when you're in such a super minority as we are, we're 0.65% of the force, it makes you feel even less than that when the language being used on an everyday basis is not included of your identity. And I think this is a great step forward. We are increasing our numbers steadily. 72 women, that's the most women who've served ever in the history of New York City. We've been serving the New York City since 1982, so for 36 years. And it's about time that we speed up into modern day and use inclusive language. So one day, a woman firefighter is just as a common sight as you see a woman politician, a woman cop, a woman judge. It won't be a frontier that has to be crossed because it's been crossed long ago. And we thank you for being a part of that and being a part of making history and making the way for future women to serve our city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll search for you. Okay, and now we're going to ask Regina Wilson, who's the only woman firefighter in her 1999 class of 300 and a 9/11 first responder. She's the first woman president of the Vulcan Society, a firefighter association for African American FDNY members, and has been fighting against gender and race discrimination in the fire department. Regina.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm just really appreciative of the opportunity to be here to see this bill pass and to have this legislation in law. It is long overdue. We always have to not only correct the members of the fire department, even sometimes our chiefs, but we sometimes it's more important for us to try and correct the public and hope that the public adapts to this language as well. Far too many times we'll come off the fire trucks and people will call and say, hey, wave to the firemen. And I'm like looking around like, I'm not a man. Like, so I think inclusive language matters. And I don't think people realize that enough. For someone to say that I'm a man or a guy to my face and then it totally excludes me out of the picture. So this bill today definitely I think is a great start in order to have the conversations, change the language. We've been working since last year with the assembly member, to be able to get this done, and I'm just so happy that this day is finally here. And I'm also, hoping that even though we have those numbers of 72 came from a lawsuit. And we don't want to continuously have to sue the department to show that people of color and women have to have the opportunities that has been afforded since its 153-year history. So if we want to try to increase those numbers, it's not the fact of women not wanting to get this job, it's because they're not given the opportunity or are being nurtured or shown that this is a job that's not male-dominated. This job is non-traditional, and I think one of the missions that I've had of the 19 years that I've been on this job is to change my job from being a non-traditional job to making it just a job. So those are the important things, and it starts with language. It starts with reading it in books. It starts with being able to read stories to your children and not having firemen in those textures either, not allowing all of the books to have little boys with the helmets on, but having females, and being able to open up those doors and having to think out of the box. So we really, really urge the department to continue to make these strides, but to do it in a way that's really going to change the numbers drastically, and they have a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just become a children's book author and do that. I don't know. Sounds like to me like a good book there. So I'm going to also ask a couple of my colleagues to speak. Assemblymember Morelli, would you like to speak?
I'd be delighted.
A few words.
Good afternoon. And I'm obviously delighted to be here with New York's finest and New York's bravest. And we don't say bravest men, they're just the bravest, finest. First, let me say how proud I am to stand with Joanne Simon, who's been relentless in her pursuit of getting this bill passed. I say that in the nicest way. She's at my desk literally every day, and we're talking about schedule, so today is the day. We will have this bill on the floor. I'm very proud of that. But she has been just dogged in making certain that this bill comes to the floor, that we send the proper message to all of our children and people throughout this state. And people would think this bill seems like, why is it taking so long to get done? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know how important it is, because there were days when you'd think adding the name man or woman somehow indicated your ability to do the job. We find it odd. We'd say male nurse. We talked about police woman, as though there's somehow that there was less than what it would be for their counterpart. So this puts an end to that. It says what it is. Every person in the state should know, and every child in particular. I did like your point about children's books. I have a 4-year-old granddaughter named Arabella, and when we talk about her future, I always say, Arabella, you can be anything you want to be. And this is really important because this puts puts that to the test, that we're going to say to everybody in this state, no matter who you are, you can achieve everything you want to achieve and fulfill all your dreams. And so I, again, want to thank Betty Little in the Senate, my good friend Joanne Simon, and all the members. We have members on both sides of the aisle, both houses here. I think that says a great deal about the work that that Joanne and Betty have done, and says how important this issue is. Thanks so much for the opportunity to say hello.
Thank you. I also want to mention that we've been joined by two other Assembly members, Christine Pellegrino and Felix Ortiz. And so, Joe Lentil, did you want to say something, since we're going kind of in seniority here?
Seniority?
Just a little.
Well, in case you hadn't noticed, I stood in the back where I belong, and behind all of the wonderful women who you heard and were so eloquent here today. And there's not much that I could add to that eloquence, except to answer the question that Joe Morelli asked as to why we haven't gotten here, when you would think we've come a long way. As the saying goes, we've come a long way, baby, but we haven't gone far enough. And I can tell you why. I think the Assembly and the Senate and the Bill Drafting Commission attempted to do this over the years. But guess what? It was men who were doing it. And now we know the answer, because they didn't get it right. The men didn't get it right in order to make the language gender neutral. And so it's about time that we have Joanne Simon in the State Assembly and Betty Little in the New York State Senate, so that they can show the way how we can get it right. And you've heard all the reasons why we have to get it right. It's for the advantage not only of the women of the world, it's to the advantage of the men and the children who know that the world has changed, especially the children, and how much it has changed. And this is one of the changes that we have to put into place for the future, so that our kids no longer talk about firemen, and no longer talk about policemen, and no longer talk about nurses as only being women. We want to be gender neutral. That's what this bill does, and I'm proud to support it with all of my colleagues. Thank you.
Joe. And we've also been joined by Deputy Speaker Earlene Hooper. Did you want to say something? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to call up Carmen. She got here first, and she's been serving for Carmen Arroyo, who is a real leader and a real fighter for the Bronx, and one of the first Hispanic women in the State Assembly, if not the first. And she's not backing down.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be here. I think that as women, we do better than them.
See why you're elected.
I know.
I am. My name is Carmen Arroyo. I represent the 84th Assembly District in the South Bronx. I am the first Puerto Rican woman ever elected to one state assembly in United States of America. It took the Hispanics and the Puerto Ricans 100 years to elect a woman, but they found a tough cookie, and Carmen Arroyo was elected. My congratulations on the bill. I think that is about time, but there are things that we have to do that were supposed to be done years ago, and we are going to continue working. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Okay. Earlene, do you want to say your words?
Thank you so very much, everyone who's here, and especially to my colleague, Assemblywoman Simon, who had the foresight to see the necessity of the language reflecting the society. I'm standing here with this young lady with me, Antoinette Proctor. The reason I had her to come with me is because I teach at Adelphi University, the Graduate School of Social Work, and she was one of my students. And she made an excellent grade, and now serving not just as a social worker, but as a firefighter in the community of Brooklyn. Thank you.
No problem, ma'am.
I just want to share something about what the problems that we have sometimes when we have a different generation. When I was younger, or even when the language was did not reflect the society, I always called the person who brought mail to my house the mailman. Until later, the United States Postal Services assured that they are mail carriers. And this is in keeping with assuring that we, women and men, are also responsible not just for delivering the mail, but also for another anomaly that I have. And I'm working on this one. If someone says to me, I'm going to the doctor, somehow or another I say, well, who is he? Yet my physicians both are female. So thank you, Assemblywoman Simon, for not only doing this for all of us, but also for me. And thank you all of us who joined us today. I appreciate it. Sorry I'm late, but better late than never.
Okay, Nilly? You were here. Well, I'm kind of going in who came what time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Joanne Simon, and to Senator Betty Little, who is here, to all of our colleagues. I'm Assemblymember Neely Rozek. When I was elected in 2012, I was the youngest woman elected to the state legislature. So this is quite meaningful for so many of us, but especially us young women in the legislature. I think this legislation is ultimately important because you really can't be what you can't see. And in this case, you can't be what you can't read in black and white lettering, not just in manuals that the fire department puts out, but actually in state law. And so it's really powerful and meaningful to have this change in the legislature to reflect really what our society is all about, being inclusive, being diverse, and really including everyone in that, both firefighters and police officers. So I want to thank both FDNY and NYPD for being here and for pushing this legislation. I think it's a really fantastic idea whose time has come. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. You know, one thing I want to mention is that this bill is about 165 pages long because it changes the language throughout all of New York State statutes. So it's in 16 different chapters, and it needed to be cleaned up. It needed to be modernized and come into, the 21st century here. So I'm very pleased. It's one of the reasons it took a while to get done is because it was a lot of reading to get to the point of getting it through all of those statutes. Okay, so now Carrie Werner, would you like to join us, please, and say a few words? Carrie represents the capital. You'll tell them where you represent.
Hi, I'm Assemblymember Carrie Werner. I represent the 113th Assembly District, which is parts of Saratoga and Washington counties. I spent the first part of my career, 30 years working in the high-tech industry, and I have been known to say that it is often challenging to be a woman working in a man's world. And indeed it is. But I think what this bill represents is a statement that says it is no longer a man's world. That we may not be yet represented in equal numbers in every profession, but we are in every way they're equals. And so I think that under the heading Language is Destiny, by making this statement that says that our bravest are firefighters and police officers, we are making a strong statement that our destiny as women is to be equal in every workplace. So I'm proud to be here today to join Assemblymember Simon and Senator Little in this effort. And I thank you all so much for the great work that you do in our communities. Thanks.
Thank you. And next, Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Seawright, representing parts of the Upper East Side of Manhattan and Roosevelt Island. It's a pleasure to be here. I commend Joanne Simon for sponsoring this bill and Senator Betty Little. And as we celebrate and think about women's suffrage and the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage movement, our mothers would be so proud of this legislation. It's an important step toward promoting equality, and it's great to be here with our women leaders, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Assemblymember Kevin Byrne, you were here. He came early. He came early, so it's great to have him. Thank you so much.
That's right. Well, thank you.
Young and male and a supporter of this legislation.
That's right.
How great.
So my name is Kevin Byrne. I represent the 94th Assembly District, which includes portions of Putnam County, northern Westchester. So we're about an hour north of the city. So a lot of the folks that I represent, while they live in my district, they work in the city. And I can just say, to dovetail on what all the speakers have said before, the sponsor has said, words have meaning. And we should be enacting policies that attract people, attract talent into this type of field. In Putnam County, most of our service is volunteer. We also have a lot of career folks too. I volunteered in my community. I volunteered with female firefighters, and they were amazing. And I know they got what it takes, and they make us better as a community, and we should be encouraging and attracting more people into this. So I just want to say thank you for all you do. Antoinette, right? Antoinette, thank you not only for your service to the city and the people of New York, but also to your service to our country as a member of the United States Marine Corps. So thank you.
Thank you. And Assemblymember Christine Pellegrino. If you want, you don't have to say everything, but if you want to.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Christine Pellegrino. I represent the 9th Assembly District on Long Island. I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. And as a teacher, I want to echo the words of Virginia, thank you so much. That especially for children in schools who see how words matter. This is a great piece of legislation, and I want to thank the sponsored Assembly member, Joanne Simon, for making sure that our women in great public service are visible, and that we're attracting these great women into these great professions. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today.
Thank you. Assemblymember Joe Arrigo, did you want to say a few words? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I have to tell you something. I've been married almost 50 years. And I said to my wife one day, I said, in all these years, you've never said I was right. She says, I'll let you know. So, right? So, yes, sometimes men, they don't think. All right, so I will be very honored to represent you and all the other people. And I just learned about one of my colleagues. She's a Marine, so am I. So I have the utmost respect for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Assemblymember Felix Ortiz.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I also would like to join and thank Assemblywoman Simon, the Senator Little, and all the colleagues that was here today. And for those who serve in the service, I also would like to say thank you for your service. Although I have 2 Marines against 1 Army, so I will say that I probably will debate that later. But let me just very quick say this. This legislation really is bring a lot to light. This legislation is going to really give my granddaughters the opportunity to feel proud. Number 2, my sister-in-law was one of the first police officers in the department of the NYPD back in 1982. And I will tell you this much, that rather than being calling a policewoman, she was called a policeman officer, which is a very exciting call. In 1989, I used to work for the Office of Management and Budget, which I was in charge of the manning formula for the fire department, trying to determine the different variables of the Manning formula. And I always had a hard time with the Manning formula myself. But today is a great day. Today is a great day for just not for you, but for all the people throughout the state of New York. And I hope that not only we will get this legislation done in the Assembly, but also we get it in the Senate. And we hope that the governor will come to light to sign this piece of legislation to give us the next step and open the door for those who has waiting for this for a long time. So I'm here to support you. Thank you for your fine work. I represent Sunset Park and Red Hook in Brooklyn. And may God bless you, and let's keep the faith. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you all. If we have a couple of questions, I'll be happy to take them. And if not, I would say thank you very much for coming. And I look forward to passing this bill on the floor this afternoon and sending it on to the governor for his signature. Thank you, and thank you for helping to make New York a better place for all of us. Thank you, ladies, very much.